Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you another video. Alright, so trying to figure out what I want to watch and all these different things while I pull rice out of my crock pot here. And what comes to mind is just make content. Just make some content for the people. So that's what I'm doing, man. It's a lot to talk about in regards to the Los Angeles Lakers. Much has been said about um, just overall the strangeness from which the Anthony Davis sitting out for the OKC game situation has kind of unfolded. I guess Darvin Ham may have misspoke in regards to whether or not the plan was to sit Anthony Davis before the road trip even began, or whether or not they were just sitting him as a precaution for whatever may have taken place in the game against Memphis. Um, that would otherwise raise a health concern for everybody. I think at the end of the day, I was going off my own eye test when I was addressing everybody in regards to what Anthony Davis was sitting for in regards to the reason. He hurt his knee. I saw it. He came down on his knee kind of funny, got up and shrugged it off, but it's Anthony Davis. So, in this situation, when you see something like that, common sense tells you it's probably best to rest him just off of the sheer nature of how the last injury went. Didn't look like it was barely any contact at all, and he was out for a whole month. So anytime you see something like that, you just assume he's going to sit anyway. And plus, it's a back-to-back. So the way I saw it was, you just play it by ear. Yeah, the plan is to not play him back-to-backs. But since we're in this particular situation, if he wants to play in the Thunder game and he's healthy enough to play in the Thunder game, then maybe based on the situation, you would be willing to play him. But if for some reason there was some type of injury scare in the Memphis game, then you would automatically not play him in the OKC game. So I just went under those pretenses based on how I had it in my own head. Now, once Darvin Ham started talking about what plans were and all of that, then I'm like, oh, he just backed himself into a corner. The way it should have went is exactly the way I explained it. You leave yourself a room for all kinds of outs, and then it didn't have to be a plan with whether or not you were going to sit him or not, because the back-to-backs gave you that out for which to have set him anyway. So it's like, sometimes people lie when they don't have to, that kind of thing. Or maybe, the organization just made, the decision to kind of lie by way of the coach, which wouldn't be the first time I've seen something like that. But honestly, this was a situation where I don't think the team needed to lie. So maybe he just misspoke. Like, it was not needed. They had every reason to both sit him and not sit him without even mentioning anything of an injury. So that's where it gets a little weird. But nevertheless, if the plan was to sit him from the beginning, that's cool. But apparently, Darvin Ham worded to the media that initially they were going to play him both games. He expected him to be able to play both games. So that right there would back it into being a lie if the plan was for him to sit in the first place. So, which is it? Did you plan on having him sit, or did you have intentions of him playing both games like you initially told us? To be honest with me, when it comes to stuff like this, I don't care. I literally don't care, because when I look at a superstar like that, I just automatically expect people to handle their injuries a certain way. It's the same thing he did with LeBron James. We all heard LeBron say, I heard a pop, but Darvin claims plausible deniability. Nobody told him anything about a pop, so he didn't hear a pop. This is the exact same thing, only not executed properly, because there's no need to do it. There's no need to lie. So I don't know. But everybody wants to be very careful about these guys' injuries because there's too much attached to them. You got shoe companies, you got other, interests that are attached to these guys. You got the NBA's overall interest. You got the team's individual interests. It's just a lot to where if a guy sits and he's as big as LeBron James, they're going to be, it moves numbers, it moves mountains, so to speak, in business. So it's not something you just want to, as easily as simply within the confines of the NBA, to say, okay, this guy's sitting. Now, when it comes to LeBron James, let's consider what sitting means if it's a serious injury. Because if it's a serious injury, the numbers got to move around. People, that kind of thing. So I'd imagine, in my speculation, that's kind of why you don't get a whole lot of clarity as it pertains to AD and Bron's injuries. Status has a lot to do with that. The power of the player, whether or not he wants to be playing through an injury or not, they kind of want to leave. It's almost like an unwritten rule where I guess the player in this player empowerment era, it kind of want their own, you know what I mean, ability to say whether or not they're going to play or not. So in a situation like this, maybe the plan was to play, and then the AD might have seen the injury, and there might have been some back and forth about whether or not he would play, that kind of thing. And then maybe it was just like whatever we landed on. Maybe who knows? It could be a lot of different things that could have made that a little confusing, especially when you're on the road, you're on different flights. You're in the middle of a long schedule. Just came back from the All-Star game, so it's a lot of bail to shoot Darvin Ham as to why he could have been thinking that something was planned when it hadn't been. It's a lot of different things that could have went down there. But at the end of the day, I leaned myself into thinking that he just honestly told a white lie when it wasn't necessary to do so. And it's not the first time our organization has done that. It's a trait that our organization has had at times, and it's not the first time I've seen this. And it is what it is, especially as it pertains to one of these guys' health. So, that's just where I'm looking at. I'm like, all right, man, Justice, stop capping. This is another thing. It comes all the way back around to the same old stuff. It's like when it comes to the way the NBA is moving today, the numbers going up, the sports betting and all these different things. This ain't too far away from that ballpark. You're throwing a dart at that same damn thing. And so that's how I look at it. I'm saying it has something to do with that kind of thing too. So anyway, man, that's my point of view in regards to that particular subject. Now, moving on from that, I'm looking forward to this Minnesota Laker matchup tomorrow, man. Not only as it pertains to the importance of the matchup, but this is one of the rare times where I actually did homework on the team the day before the game, and I plan on continuing to do more homework today, and we'll do more homework tomorrow. I don't think that has anything to do with the importance of the game. I think it just has to do with the fact that our team is good, and I have interest in what's going on. More so than I normally would, based on the team being bad for the last 2-3 years. So I'm just more into it. So I'm looking at what we got going on. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, what I can say is the game that they just played, we're going to have to understand that they stole the ball a lot from the Clippers, man. They beat the Clippers and they stole the ball from them repeatedly. So, without turning this into a Minnesota-Laker matchup game, the turnovers that we ran into against the Memphis Grizzlies, if we have any remnants of that against Minnesota, we'll have the same situation. They got a similar type of situation where they got Anthony Edwards, he's Ja Morant. You look at McDaniels, he's like some hybrid of Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson or something like that. You got to understand that they kind of simulate Memphis a little bit in a way, poor man style. But what we also have to realize is Anthony Edwards ain't no poor man's nobody. And that's where it starts to go left. You can still end up getting destroyed by this dude, and it can be the same outcome. Now, we got lucky against OKC because SGA didn't play, but if he did, I'm pretty sure that's a 33-8-8 game against him, for which we could not have withstood. So this is a thing where it's like, hopefully Anthony Davis can go, man. Hopefully Anthony Davis can go. I'm not going to ask that our players play through injury. I don't think we should look at it and see Dennis Schroeder's playing through injury and say other guys should, even though that's a natural thing. We shouldn't do that. Playing smart with people's injuries is the smartest thing to do, especially since we're not mathematically in a closer space from which we are going to be eliminated. Like if we were 1 or 2 games away from complete elimination, then we would be saying, okay, D-Lo, you got to get out there, because if this isn't something that can completely go left and re-injure yourself, then you will have all the rest in the world after this game if we don't win it. You know what I'm saying? But we would need to try to save our playoff lives, or of course just concede the season entirely. And so I don't think anybody's ready to do that. But given the fact that we're not that close to falling off, given that we have more games, more of a cushion, we can still be very wise about people's injuries, and it will still be ultimately what we should do, even though we're mathematically in this position we're in, because you definitely don't want to have guys play through injury now, win or lose these games, and then not have those guys because they get re-injured, and you're still going to find yourself in a situation where you're 2 or 3 games from being eliminated any damn way without those players. So it's like you got that problem now, you can have it later. Got to make it make sense. Making it so that guys are healing from their injuries in spite of your situation ultimately looks like it makes the most sense mathematically right now. So that's what I'm saying. No, nobody should be playing through injury. We still have a little time left. We can afford to lose maybe 2 more games based on what's going on right now, 3 more games maybe. But we want to make sure that those games are almost like scheduled losses. You wanna know that you can afford to lose to Phoenix. That's what I'm saying. You want to know that if you drop the next game against Memphis, that it ain't gonna knock you out the playoffs for doing so. You got to beat the Knicks, you got to beat Orlando, you got to beat the Bulls. You know what I mean? And these aren't easy feats. These are not easy feats. You gotta beat the Timberwolves. These are games you can't lose. So that's really what it comes down to. We still got some games that we could very well lose based on the fact that the teams might be better than us and just simply better than us. So that means y'all better be ready for those games to be losses and still be able to make them playoffs. So that's what the Lakers are looking at, man. Every game's a must win right now, especially teams that aren't elite. If they are okay or they're in our range, they got to go down by our hands. We can't wait for other teams to beat these teams that we have to face off against, man. The Portlands, I don't know who all we have left to see in that regard, though. But definitely OKC left, Dallas left, Clippers. Any of these teams in this logjam, any of these teams between 1 and 6, they have to lose. They have to lose, and we have to be the ones beating them. So I expect the Lakers to be on the next man up mission. Much has been said about the point guard position on this channel and how it's we're hanging on a thread right now. Even though it looks like we're doing pretty good, I know listening to the Kaminsky brothers, much was said about Troy Brown's ability to pass the ball. I'll keep an eye open for it. I'll be honest, it's not something I've been looking out for at all season long. When I'm thinking about Troy Brown, I'm thinking about rebounding, defense, slashing to the bucket, 3-point percentage. That's it. Other than that, I'm not even looking for passing. So I will be going forward, and if he can help us with playmaking, that'll be amazing. I think Lonnie Walker has some intangibles that can help us there as well. Maybe Malik Beasley as well, even though we don't want Malik Beasley doing anything but shooting all day long. If he's attempting 10, 12 3-point shots a game, I don't have a problem with that. So long as everybody else is only attempting 2 and 3. But let the shooter shoot, and that's cool. But what I'm saying is we will need more continuity, and we'll be lucky if we can find it with some of these guys that we have on our roster. They're just not passers, man. They're not. So I've mentioned Goran Dragic. I don't know who else will be bought out. I think DJ Augustine's out there. We had him. He played well for us, more of a shooter than anything else. But you need somebody who's going to set up your offense. Derrick Rose, I don't know if he's out there or not, but he would certainly be somebody I'd be willing to pick up. Even though I know the team doesn't want to go old, don't want to go injury prone, but at the same time, you just need a point guard that can run your offense. Somebody that is good enough to make enough assists happen so that your continuity can make sense when you don't have a passer on the floor. Because if Austin Reeves gets another ankle, or Dennis Schroeder has an injury that he can't come back from, we're going to have the type of problems we don't want. And that's just really what it comes down to. We ain't groomed Scottie Pippen to play point guard for us at all season long. And unfortunately, that's exactly what we would need to call on, who we would need to call on to play that for us in these must-win games. And so that's why I'm like, look, he should have already been getting playing time. We should have already foreseen the fact that we were going to be getting rid of them guards that we had. I told everybody we were going to reimagine our guard lineup, and we did. And now, unfortunately, we don't have as reliable guards to stay healthy. Yeah, they may be better tiered players, but they ain't going to be out there as much because they're going to be injured more. So that's what the Lakers got to pay attention to. Get themselves a floor general in the offseason, particularly after the season ends. We need to have more passers in other positions so that we don't have these problems. Get you a Nick Batum type of guy so you don't have these problems. That way, that small forward you got, can get at least 7-8 assists a night. And if Troy Brown can do that, cool. But the problem with Troy Brown is he's young. He's very inconsistent. And being that he's a role player, a level like that, you got to wait on him. And some nights you're just going to have last night where he's great, and other nights it's going to be like the night before where he was nothing. Absolutely nothing. And you just got to live with that. And for me, he can't be the only passer if that's going to be his way of getting down. Nah. He can't be our playmaker, especially in this situation. So he's unreliable to that degree. We got to find that point guard. And so we're not asking Austin Reeves to do it. And plus, Austin still got to work on his handle, man. We know that. As great as Austin is in every area that he is, and he ain't missed a shot in about 3 games, but at the end of the day, some of them turnovers against Memphis, credited to him. Just dribbling off his foot, trying to gain dribble, trying to penetration. And his handle ain't tight enough for that, so he's going to have to get that together. One guy that's been really impressive is Rui Hachimura. You want to definitely give him his credit for how well he played yesterday. 3 blocks, some big plays down the stretch on both sides of the floor. The biggest highlight of the game for our team with the blocking and the catch down for the dunk down the stretch of the game. So, I think much has been said about how I don't want to play him at the 4, but I wanted to make everybody understand that I never wavered on the fact that he needs to be on the floor. It ain't about removing him. It was about removing Troy or removing someone else from those rotations and allowing him to play the 3. So I want to make that ever so clear, because no part of my plan has it having him be removed from what it is that we do. It's not. If I'm running things, you're going to still see that production. But he's just going to be slotted at a different position a lot of the time. Because I don't know. And it's not that I hate him at the 4. I don't personally hate him at the 4. That's also something I want to make very clear. In other situations, he's a 4. But in our situation, because of how our rotation is set up, I think we do better to play some of the other guys that need to be on the floor at the 4 more of the time than we're able to, because we have him at the 4. That's all it is. And so I think I've made that clear, but I thought it probably make more sense to make it ever so clear, because he really is playing super well. And when you have those type of conversations, that will definitely get lost in it. That'll definitely get lost in it, but it ain't supposed to. He's still going to be on the floor, and he's still going to give us all that production. It's just got to be somebody else not down there with him, in order for him to be at the 3 spot. So I'd like us to explore it. Obviously, it's only 48 minutes every game. Sometimes some of the stuff I want to see happen, it just ain't enough time out there to do it. But at the same time, matchups will allow you to have a lot of opportunities, and I just think we forego some of those opportunities based on whatever it is that Darvin is doing versus what it is that I'm talking about, which I think may work. So I think I'd have a lot more faith in Darvin Ham's choices if they led to success. I think that's really what it comes down to. That's why I have so many suggestions. There are different things that I think work, but at the end of the day, professionals do the pro stuff. I'm looking to learn more so than I am looking to make suggestions about basketball plays. But what I can say is, this roster is meant to be used properly in regards to its positions, and we've talked about that a lot. But it's the only thing we got left to get right, man. It's the only thing left to get right is for him to look at this roster and just utilize it the way it was intended to be utilized. And then from there, let the talent do what it does. If it's good enough to get us where we're going, that's what we expect. If it's not, then we'll retool next year and figure it out. But it's not a situation where we need to be doing too much like we did in the first half of the season when the roster wasn't complete and we had too many this but not enough that. That's not where we're at. You just got to identify what guys can do for what it is that they were brought here to do, and ask them to do those things, and then let them do them. Literally that simple. So I don't think we do enough of that here. And I think that's why certain guys have asked to leave. You know what I mean? And maybe it wasn't to their betterment. I look at Thomas Bryant and say, you're not getting as many minutes there. Maybe you should have stayed here and continued to play the role that you were in. But, guys have other ideas about what they want to do, and if you're not going to play them minutes, you can't blame them for wanting to leave. So we're fortunate that more people didn't want to leave our organization based on how Darvin Ham was prioritizing other guys who weren't as productive. Keep it real. And that's something the Lakers need to really consider while they're allowing these type of things to take place. Like, you do understand that people are not happy sitting down for people that are not better than them, who are not more productive than them while they're sitting there losing and watching it happen. No, stop this. It's hard to root for guys when they're sucking. So that's something I'm glad we've remedied by getting good players, but now we got to put them in positions to succeed because we still have a lot of people sitting. So that's real, man. That's real. You want people to run through a wall for you, play through injury, make sure their minutes make sense, make sure they're winning, and not to the detriment of just choices that are put, in place and therefore they don't work. So that's the thought. Now going forward, we have some tough games. I mentioned the New York Knicks. Uh, that's an interesting matchup for us, man. I'm just gonna tell y'all right now. We usually have pretty solid games against the Knicks and stuff like that, but they're usually not very meaningful, and the Knicks are usually not very good. What I'm saying to you is we lose to them just as much as we win to them, honestly. We really do. When they come to town, it's usually a problem. For whatever reason, they usually have a bunch of fans here that go crazy. They turn this place into an orange and blue type of speckled arena. It's not the most fun thing for Laker fans to have the Knicks come to town. It's really not. Over the years, you hate it. Usually a Sunday afternoon game like we always complain about, at 12 afternoon or whatever. I don't know that this is that. What I am telling you is we do have Julius Randle coming in. And Julius Randle, the thing about Juju, and this is what we always have known about our guy, is he's one of the best conditioned athletes in the world. He honestly is, man. He's a force of nature that's 10 times stronger than a lot of people think he is. And he's the exact type of guy that will be able to play 2 overtimes, 3 overtimes, 4 overtimes, and still have plenty in the tank to dunk and rebound and do all the stuff that he does. Now, granted, Juju's going to do stuff that we don't like. We've talked about it a lot. We've seen it a lot. We're Laker fans. We know Julius. But a lot of that stuff that he does that helps his team is going to be things that attack us in ways we would rather not be attacked without LeBron James. And so what I'm telling you is that's going to be a tough matchup, man. They got some seriously potent offensive players over there. And while we got some seriously potent offensive players over here, if all of them ain't going to be 100% healthy, that Knicks game doesn't look like a game that we should be favored to win. Even with the changes that we made to our roster, it's just not a good matchup when they're fully healthy. Guys like R.J. Barrett and Brunson, the level that Brunson's playing on right now, I told you guys he's going to turn into a Hall of Famer. It ain't hard to tell. It's in how he attacks. And so as he continues to attack in this unorthodox way, he's getting better and better at it, and the teams are getting more and more clueless at how to defend him. So his scoring numbers are going to go up and up and up and up and up over the next several years, and he's going to be an MVP candidate and all this other stuff that I'm telling you I'm expecting. And if he's able to do that in the playoffs while the rest of the team can stay as 100% healthy as they've kind of been, because they really haven't had some of the injury issues that normal Knicks teams usually have this season, you could be looking at a Knicks team that comes into the Laker building and have success, or a Knicks team that goes on to have playoffs success and all these different things that the Knicks are capable of doing this season. So be wise, Laker fans. We still got a game against a very good Eastern Conference team that most people are going to say, oh, the Knicks, not this Knicks team. Not this one. They just beat Boston Celtics by more than 15 points a couple days ago. Granted, they didn't have Jaylen Brown, but they still been beating people without Jaylen Brown. They're still a very good team without Jaylen Brown. They beat that team comfortably at home. So, I'm not telling you that that's the most dangerous team on the board, or like they're more dangerous than, say, some of the other teams we're going to face in the West. But if you just assume that you're going to win that game, don't. It's essentially what I'm saying to you. Don't. They can play well, you can play well, and you can lose. That's how good they are. So that's how real that is. Another playoff team coming into our building. And there's another thing that we're going to see. Obviously we talk a lot about Patrick Beverley and how he's going to the Chicago Bulls. Well, yeah, he's a Bull, and he knows us, the old us, but he knows a lot of our players. Without LeBron James, we're probably going to still be missing the king in those games. We got concerns, man. Why? Because he has Caruso next to him. Just like we said about Anthony Davis having AD next to him on a much lesser degree on the same end, the defensive end. When Patrick Beverley has a guy like our very own Alex Caruso next to him, you got to deal with 2 of the best defensive players in the backcourt right now. And a lot of people say, well, Patrick Beverley, no. Patrick Beverley was not as effective because he didn't have any rim protection around him. Patrick Beverley wasn't effective because the person next to him wasn't able to defend no better than the person next to him, because they were often both point guards. That ain't the situation over there. We know AC's got all the size necessary to guard 2s just fine, and he's going to get steals, and Patrick Beverley's going to get steals, and when they double team people, they're going to stifle people. We got 2 back-to-back games against them. Obviously, back-to-back means we got to be 1 here, 1 there. I don't know how many days are between those games, and I don't think it matters, because at the end of the day, it's a road trip starting up in that situation. So what that tells me is that's going to be a tough game. It's going to be very spirited. They're going to want to beat us. It's a bunch of old Lakers. They got playoff aspirations. You got DeMar DeRozan, who's playing at a high level from LA. It's not going to be pretty. I think we can win both of those games. I think we're supposed to win both of those games. But there ain't no reason for us to think that we will win both of those games if we don't have our thinking caps on and play high level basketball against them, whether AD's there or not, whether Bron's there or not, etc. So I'm telling you. So if we lollygag against the Timberwolves, or if we don't do what we need to do against, say, the Rockets, for some reason we drop a game in some of these situations, we won't make the playoffs. We'll be good enough to make the playoffs, but our record will just be too much for us to overcome. And that will be the story. So, I don't want that to be for our fate, more or less. I don't think anybody wants that to be our fate. But, except for our enemies, of course. But at the end of the day, it can very well happen if the Lakers don't address certain issues. And so the issues that we're talking about addressing, here's another thing we can segue into talking about. Jay Huff just left the South Bay Lakers. Now, where he went, I do not know. I didn't check. I don't know if he got called up to a big team. I don't know if he's, going to be a guy going to another G League squad, if he's going overseas. I have no idea. But I just think the Lakers missed an opportunity to call up a really high-level interior defensive presence, just for the sake of him not really being able to guard the perimeter. And while I think that's a legitimate thing, I think there are certain lineups you could have really used Jay Huff, and you kind of let him just walk away just because maybe he didn't fit the modern era. And I just think that's so misguided when you consider how many small ball issues and how many issues the Lakers have. There's a guy that we just let walk out of our organization. Whatever he turns into, we'll always remember there's another one the Lakers just didn't want for reasons that didn't make any sense. So, farewell, Jay Huff. Wish him well wherever he goes. But this Laker fan definitely wanted to see you play on a big team, and I'm not happy that you didn't get called up at least a little bit for some of this small ball garbage that we were dealing with. So that's what I want everybody to know. Jay Huff ain't with the Lakers, South Bay Lakers, or the LA Lakers no more. He's another Mac McClung, probably gonna find another place to play and then show us why we should have kept him. Nothing new. So yeah, man, frustrated about that. I think that I was just telling us we need to call him up right now. It's like, why is he leaving the organization? That's the opposite, the complete opposite of what we need. But whatever. That's the Lakers doing stuff that I don't understand. But hopefully that means more opportunities for a guy like Mo Bamba to feel good about what can happen going forward for him. Makes you think about how a guy like Thomas Bryant feels about leaving the Laker organization when you don't have to worry about Jay Huff ever being called up. That kind of thing. It's like, you sure leaving LA was the right move? But my thing with Thomas Bryant was I didn't mind us getting rid of him because I can't trust him play no dang defense. And Mo Bamba, I definitely can. Mo Bamba's going to block those shots that Thomas is going to let just go way up and over his head. And, it's not the same dynamic, man. I like what we did here. So now it's just to our coach understanding that it's an upgrade. He ain't Thomas Bryant. He ain't Damian Jones. Play him as such. Play him as such. And so I guess I'll wrap this. I got to get to cleaning up this crock pot so I can finally eat this meal. That chicken is going to be overcooked right now. But, I just want the Lakers, nation out there to know that I'm very appreciative of everybody rocking with me. Obviously, I'm all over the place most of the time, but I really do truly appreciate what we do here. And so I wanted to check in and let you guys know that I got my ear to the NBA, the LA Lakers streets. I know what they're kind of doing, more or less, with this injury thing. And it's just me speculating, but I'm pretty certain I'm right. They want to leave Anthony Davis room to make his own decision, but you can't technically do that by the book, I think. Can't really do that, So it's like, if he want to play, he can play. If he doesn't want to play, he doesn't have to play. But we want to always look like we had a plan in place, because if we don't, we're incompetent. So how does that work? This is where the rubber meets the road, and the communication breaks down, and the coach doesn't necessarily know what to say, so he says something he shouldn't, kind of thing. That's what I think happened. But what I will say is Darvin Ham needs to be very careful in situations like this, because it could look like a certain type of thing. And it's a million different ways. This is the problem. I have a certain type of brain, so I can introduce something to you that may not actually be there, but it looks like it could be something like that. So I want to be careful not to be irresponsible. But something that could be in the environment from which this is something that can make him look like he's trying to lie about players' injury stuff for the betterment of his own backside. Like, we gonna lie about AD's injury on this road trip because we need to win these games. I'm telling you, that's a bad way to get started if you're a rookie coach. It's a bad way to get started. You would rather lose those games than have the reputation of somebody who would do something like that. Because his health is not to be toyed with. So if you think toying with his health is gonna keep your job, believe me, brother, it ain't. Toying with his health is gonna get you fired for sure. And so that's something I don't think he would be stupid enough to do. But it looks like that could be what's going on here. So he needs to be very careful not to be seen that way. So that's the gist of it. That's the gist of what I got to say about it. My name is BDO44. I thank you all for watching.